Yo, what is going on, gamers? Makowski here, and today we've got the very first episode of The Tower, a G1 podcast that discusses Destiny and all that implies. Joining us today on my fire team of 3 are 2 of the most legendary Guardians to ever touch the game. Please welcome PvP Slayer and world first raid belt holder, Gigz.
Yes, sir. Howdy.
And rounding out the squad, we've got the king of Grandmaster Nightfalls, Ekuegan. EK, welcome.
Oh man, thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. And producing today's episode, we've got the one and only Cody Kook, also known as Hyper. So the goal with the Tower podcast, guys, we got our first episode kicking off tonight, is to have an overarching conversation about Destiny. So if it exists in the Destiny universe, we're going to be talking about it right here on this show. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. So for me personally, and I know a lot of people feel the same way, I love a good origin story. And EK, I was checking Twitter last week, and I thought we might have an incredible story here. So first, let me know, how did you get your gamer tag and what got you into Destiny?
I do have like this ongoing joke in my channel about like my gamer tag, because it's actually like my first name. So the joke says my parents had sex, I was born, and they had to name a baby. Boom. There goes my name. When it comes to Destiny, in college, like I played college basketball, whatever, and I used to basically like do my best to stay out of trouble during like season and preseason. My roommate at the time, we had a friend named Perry. He used to come and hang out all the time, and he had Destiny on his like PlayStation. And I was always like looking at the game. I was like, this is a cool game, whatever. So Taco Bell, within like, I would say 2 or 3 weeks, was doing like their little raffle thing where they give away like a PlayStation and the game. And Destiny was like the game that was like
This was around 2014 or so.
Yeah. So they have like these $5 boxes where you get like tacos and those cinnamon things that they throw in there and a drink.
Cinnamon twist, man. Come on.
You're not leaving Taco Bell without cinnamon twist. Big mistake.
So, the first time I went, I got the $5 box. I didn't get a box though. They just like gave me like a bag, and I was like, this is or whatever. So next time I go, I get another one, and I was like, well, last time I was here, I was supposed to get a box, but you guys didn't give me one. So lady was cool about it. She gave me 2 boxes. And the funny thing is, I don't know, but I feel like I ended up winning off of the second box that I asked for. And they sent me like the white Destiny 2 edition PlayStation. It came with the game, and it was just like, I started playing in my dorm room with my friend Perry, and then that was it. I just like dove into it.
That is unreal. So the screw up by not including the box in the box combo is what led to you becoming one of the greatest legends in Destiny the game. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh my! So here's the kicker: would you have played or even purchased a PlayStation or gotten into Destiny if it weren't for winning that Taco Bell raffle?
Yeah, but not at that time. Definitely not at that time. I wasn't buying anything like that. We had like stipend checks of like maybe $100 a week, but that was to take care of like your meals and stuff. So
wow,
yeah.
Wow. So we all know you as the GM legend in Destiny 2. What was most of your time spent in Destiny 1 like?
When I started playing Destiny 1, I didn't do much. I started out with a lot of Crucible. And then I got into raiding a little bit later on. Like I did VOG. I started out with a Titan, and then all of a sudden I was like, yeah, you gotta bring a self-res Warlock and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, sure. So then the Warlock was my second character that I made just for that. And then Crota's End came out, and it was like, man, you can't sword with a Titan or a Warlock. I was like, why not? I do it all the time. They're like, no, you need a Hunter. I was like, fine. So I made a Hunter. I remember deleting my Hunter twice so I can have like the right gear just to do it. So over time, it just became fun to like, do Crota and like help people. So I started doing it. I used to bring like 2 of my friends. We both had Gallahorn. And I got Gallahorn the last Iron Banner before Crota's End came out. Like literally the last IB. I remember chasing the crap out of that gun, man. I used to be like in strikes all day long because you were able to get an exotic whenever like we were going for like AS Lunas and stuff like that. I would just play Crucible all day trying to get like that exotic to drop. And it was always like a Monte Carlo or like Patience in Time. It was never the Gallahorn. I remember freaking out because we had a game the next day and I was playing IB and I couldn't sleep. So I just stood up with my friends and I remember getting it and I was like in the dorm room, I was screaming and people was like, shut the fuck up. I'm trying to go to sleep. I was like, all right, whatever.
I'm trying to complete this raid.
Yeah, you don't understand. Like, Yali was like it was like the thing, man. Like
at that point, you're just trying to get on a fire team, right? Because without Gallahorn, you couldn't get on a team if you remember from Destiny 1, right?
Yep. Yeah, you don't have that feeling in Destiny 2 though when it comes to exotics anymore. But that
maybe
was
Anarchy a little bit, but
yeah, but now you just go to the kiosk. Yeah.
Yeah, if you really care about Vex, that's kind of like the only thing. But even that's
yeah. Even that has like, what is it? The more you do it, the higher chance you have to get it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, a huge thanks to Taco Bell for the fateful addition of Guardians. We added EK thanks to that. And shout out to the lady that I guess forgot the box and then came back and gave you two, because it sounds like I would almost bet that you probably got it off that second box, which just makes the story even more fateful and pretty cool. Awesome, man. Well, Connor, I know our backgrounds tie in a little bit more similarly with the Halo scene, the competitive Halo scene. Talk to me about how you first got your gamer tag and what got you into Destiny.
So I used to always make like joke gamer tags, and then don't do drugs, kids. But I was really high, and I was having dinner with my family, and my mom called me a giggle monster because I couldn't stop laughing. And I thought that was hilarious. So then I went and made it my gamer tag. But then my Twitch name was giggle_monster, which is 15 characters and an underscore. So I was like, this is really bad for discoverability.
Oh,
and I play with Goth every weekend trials, and he would just always say Gigz. So I just made it that. And so that's where the gamer tag came from. And then getting into Destiny, I mean, I was just, like you said, super into Halo. So Destiny was like natural progression. After Bungie stopped development of Halo, started working on Destiny. And my two favorite games at the time were Halo and Final Fantasy 11, which is an MMO, Final Fantasy 11. So Destiny was like blending both of those worlds, and I was addicted from the get-go.
And were you a warlock off the rip, or how did you kind of form into your current day?
No, I was a hunter. I was a super hunter main.
I feel like everybody started Destiny 1 as a hunter. It was it had to be 75% at least.
Yeah, I always say that if you show any new player what class to pick and they have no idea what the classes are, everyone always picks hunter because of the capes. And I think the population numbers kind of back that up. And that's kind of where my decision was. I saw the capes and I was like, yeah, that's the one. And I didn't get into warlock until Destiny 2, where I became a warlock main, because I saw the trend in Destiny 1 nonstop. Warlocks were already really good and constantly got buffed. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna be a warlock main in D2. And what do you know? They constantly got buffed, and here we are. Yeah.
Dawnblade was once king. I don't think it's still pretty viable. It's got a high skill ceiling, but it seems like everything's been kind of tweaked or at least brought within. Not being too strong, right? The double dash. What else? How else did they nerf Icarus and Dawnblade?
They made the melee not track as well.
Right, sniper celestial fireball.
Yeah, I mean it's still top tier. It's still really, really good. Yeah, you just can't double dash really. I can't even really tell the difference in the melee if I'm being honest. But stasis kind of shifted the balance a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I found myself in a very similar fashion getting into Destiny through my love for Halo. I competed as a professional in the 2000s. And then when Halo 4 and 5 came out, I hated Halo 4. I didn't love Halo 5. And then I thought Master Chief Collection is maybe what'll make me stick as a Halo guy for the next 5 to 10 years or so. And then I remember sitting on the release date. It was my last ever GameStop midnight release launch party. Did you guys ever go to any of? Do you guys remember those? The midnight release parties?
Yes, sir.
Which is so crazy because now you just download it, right? You would never even think to go to GameStop to get your the Witch Queen or something like that. But that was certainly a thing. MCC was my last time ever doing that. Partly because of how horrible the experience was, and partly because the times just changed where nobody even really did that anymore. But I remember sitting at home waiting for a Tour de Walsh to load up, which was 1,000 kill free-for-alls. Walshy was going to be hosting it. We're going to be getting together with a bunch of the old Halo pros. And I sat until about 6:30 a.m. pressing the A button, trying to start up the match, and it would be 6 months. I think it was 6 months of like completely inaccessible online servers. You couldn't even play the game. I said, you know what? I just don't trust 343. I'm following Bungie to their next thing, and that's pretty much what made me a Destiny 1 alpha gamer and just Guardian for life at that point. But
everything that could go wrong with that game ended up going wrong. And I remember at the time, everyone in the community was saying, like, there's no way they can mess this up. And they found quite literally every single possible way to fuck it up.
Yeah, and even today, it's not in the best form. They've done an amazing job. I always ask myself and wonder, like, was it even worth all of the time and probably dev resources that went into what MCC is today? Probably not. But I think with that nostalgic factor, as we've seen with Destiny, like, you're always going to have some people who are down to throw down for whatever reason in games that are 10 plus years old. Like, people will probably still play Halo 3 after Halo Infinite launches, just because that's just their thing. Just like how people still only play Destiny 1 Crucible, right? Which is crazy, but certainly there's
also something kind of interesting is Halo 3, because of MCC, has gotten more maps than Destiny 2.
Isn't that something? How they even just remastered the last exit, or the last city, I forget. It's a snow map now. So even as as recent as 24 hours ago, we have new Crucible maps in Halo 3, a game that released in 2007, but not in Destiny. But that's neither here nor there. We'll get into that a little bit later. But for now, I want to get into some of the trials changes, and specifically anti-cheat, what y'all's experience has been like ever since last Tuesday when the soft launch of anti-cheat dropped. And with the changes to trials, which will be making loot more accessible to players that don't go flawless. Trying to think what other changes. This is probably the big kicker, and this is what I want to talk to you guys about. Is skill-based matchmaking coming back? It almost feels like it's already here, and it's being implemented into Iron Banner through the solo playlist. There's some talk about whether or not that's even true, but I almost wonder, do you think we're going to have a full-blown skill-based matchmaking experience with trials, or do you think it's going to be almost like a hybrid? Because I think they talked about, if you have the same amount of rounds and flawlesses for the week, we'll try to find those teams to pair them together, which sounds like almost exactly like what the community was asking for. But then it almost like it's a double-edged sword where, well, did we just turn on skill-based matchmaking again?
Yeah. I mean, I think they straight up said that there is skill-based matchmaking or some level of skill-based matchmaking that resets every week. But like also it will use card-based matchmaking. So the way I interpret it is that, like, probably it'll be SBMM early on and then switch to card-based matchmaking, so you still have that, like, flawless team, two teams going against each other, winner gets flawless type of scenario. I would imagine that's the only thing that actually makes sense if you just consider, like, put your Bungie dev cap on. So yeah, that's my guess. Probably the first few games of a card would be SBMM and then switching it to a card-based system, right? So yeah, there will be SBMM, which I think is fine. If you have SBMM in the first few games, like, whatever, like, who really cares? But the concern becomes, how long do you have SBMM? Is it the whole card, right? Is it? I don't think it is, but maybe it is. Because then you just have, like, loopholes, right? If you're not as good of a player, you would just wait till, like, Monday. All the good players go through, get their SBMM rating, they're all super high, then you don't match them, right? Easier flawless.
Yeah, and it almost seems like Bungie's trying to return to this kind of, like, original form of where trials was usually in Destiny 1, 2 really good talented players, we call them Sherpas, right? And then you'd have the carry, or someone who maybe hasn't gone flawless before. And it almost seems to me like, without, like, implementing that you form that type of fire team, it almost looks to me like the way the skill-based matchmaking is going to be deployed, it will benefit and favor teams that don't stack, right?
Yeah.
So what do you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think returning to carries makes sense. I mean, it's technically against TOS to constantly have recubs, and I really don't care what anyone says. Constantly having people in there doing 3 stacks recubs ruins the playlist. Because yes, those people say, oh, they'd be playing on their accounts anyways. No, they wouldn't. If there was no money incentive, they would not be sitting in trials all day. Literally, talk to any person that does Sherpas. They do it for the money. Period.
Right. The person who would actually be playing is that player who's maybe like a 1.0 or a 1. Just like your average run-of-the-mill Guardian, right? Which is when the trials population, I think, really flourishes. Is when you have your 0.5s and you have your 2.5s, right?
Yep. So I think making it more fair for your lower tier players, making it so it's actually rewarding their time, is something that I've been talking about for a long time. That, like, trials just is not rewarding unless you're actually good at PvP, right?
Yeah.
So you need to reward people for at least trying, and then that helps them develop into a good player.
I agree.
Which I think that's what they're doing.
Entirely agree, right? Even like PvE, PvP, this is a loot game, right? It's always been kind of based around the loot. That's been a lot of the appeal to play the game. So with that being said, EK, I've done a couple Grandmasters with you, man, and it rains exotic loot. Like, it is insane, man. If you want to farm exotics or high stat roll armor, like, go do GMs, right? So what do you think as far as the times that you've played Trials? Is it just like a total slap in the face to put in an hour of pure sweat and tears and then maybe get like a good drop? Whereas, you know, you could probably farm a GM in 25, 30 minutes and guarantee an exotic. Like, where do you feel like on the PvE, PvP spectrum, Trials respects and rewards players' time? How do you feel about that?
I mean, I feel like Trials should definitely reward people more. Like, it says 3, 5, 7 wins, and the time that you put in to even get those wins might be more than someone going and doing a GM. I do understand some GMs are a little bit hard, and people don't want to put a team together and go through some stuff like Glassway. But I mean, there's going to be hard ones. There's going to be easy ones like Lake of Shadows, where like it takes you maybe 10 minutes to do a GM, right?
Right.
If you reward people, even if they're losing, if they get some kind of reward, like I shouldn't have to look for gear in PvE if I'm playing PvP. Like, I should be getting high stat gear throughout it, and the gear shouldn't be at the lighthouse either, because the weapons should be there, right? Because that's random rolled. The gear should be dropping as you play. It's almost like playing Iron Banner. Every other match can drop you something. Why not do the same thing for armor when it comes to, you know, like Trials, right? Like, imagine a Trials player wearing like a 66 base armor and they got in the stat that they want. Then like, oh crap, I gotta go do some like some prophecy dungeon stuff and get, like, why not let people get it from the playlist, right? They'll bring players back in, or even have a card that's set up for like high stat gear. People will go for it.
Ooh, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, because it seems to me like RNG is fun, right? But it's a more fair use of your time to kind of focus, quite literally, with the Umbral system, focus around what you want to grind for. So I think Bungie's almost been trying to find that like healthy balance between how do we reward someone for focusing their time and attention towards something, and then how do we make it feel really sweet when you do get that Gallahorn to drop out of nowhere, right?
Yeah, I believe that they're going to have targeted farming in Trials. Like, you
right.
just pick exactly
at the lighthouse, right? I think you can go to the lighthouse, and it's going to be expensive. I don't know if that means ascendant shards or prisms or what the economy is going to look like, but it looks like you're even going to be able to focus your adept weapons at the lighthouse. Like, that got me really excited. I think that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
So on that note, EK, is there anything that you would do, switching gears here towards your activity of choice, Nightfall GMs? Where are they after it's been about a year since Bungie launched Nightfall GMs? Where do you think we're at with GMs, and is there anything that could be done on Bungie's side to make them even better and more appealing?
Honestly, like, I feel like Grandmasters are probably the most rewarding thing in the game. Reason why is because, like, you have shards, prisms. I mean, you said it, like, your whole postmaster gets filled up quick. Yeah. The only thing that I don't like is, like, if they give us 6 GMs in a season, sometimes they like double down the next season is like the same thing. And we have so many different strikes in the game, and I understand they want to match like the lore, what's happening in the game. So they'll like, this season's gonna be Taken and Hive. That's cool. But if I look at it this way, Proving Ground and Glassway were the last 2 strikes that they added in the game. And those are the top 2 hardest GMs in the game. So like, it'd be nice every season if there's like a new thing that comes in that's like another challenge. It allows players to do more. And the artifact is weird to me. Like, certain seasons, you could just fly through everything. Like last season, we had Breach and Clear, you were just crapping through everything. This season, kind of odd. And then they're forcing like the sidearm unstoppable thing. I'm like, why not just make fusions unstoppable? Like, they're bringing that back to back. My only thing is like repetitiveness. Is like, I don't like when we get like certain things back to back, like to do the same activities again. You know, like, they finally took away the 50 light that you had to get to fucking like go back in there. Now it's 10, and that's cool. I'm glad they took that advice. But now we need to see like refreshing things. I mean, same thing for Crucible. Now that like Trials is behind the paywall, definitely try to make new maps now because people are paying for it. So then that makes it refreshing. No one wants to play Trials each season on the same maps over and over and over. That doesn't make any sense. Even if you switch out the meta or what the loadouts are, people
Right.
probably going to use the same thing because of it. It becomes very repetitive.
Yeah, and I remember there's talk about, well, Bungie charges $25 for a 3 map pack, and we'll gladly pay it if it pays for anti-cheat. Obviously, we got, I guess, what we were looking for in BattleEye, but definitely just interesting to see just how sought after anti-cheat is, and it's for good reason. It completely destroys and ruins the aspect of playing PvP, right?
Yep.
And so going back to the artifact, because I think this is really interesting, EK. You didn't seem to be a big fan of the artifact. And while I don't spend as much time in PvE or Nightfalls, I almost always get the feeling that these artifacts kind of like force you into a cookie cutter meta, right? Based around those slots that take up only one energy resource. Do you feel hindered when an artifact comes out and it's maybe plays to sidearms or a bow, and you don't really find much use for that, and you find yourself having to run sidearm bow in a Nightfall, right? Like talk me through how the artifact works, and is it forcing a meta for you? No.
I mean, like, honestly, I could probably do a Nightfall with a sidearm and a bow at the same time, but they have to look at the population as a whole, right? You're trying to introduce something to a lot of people to use. Why would you make it to where, like, some of the weapons, like even prime weapons for people to get for that meta, or like, hard to reach? I understand it's endgame, but if you want people to want to dive into endgame, a lot of people aren't taking. I remember last season, people were like, well, this guy didn't want to bring me into the GM because I didn't have Anarchy, or like I didn't have Xenophage. I was like, yeah, Witherhoard, like, yeah, bring Witherhoard. But that's what happens. People don't want to play with people that don't have certain things because it's endgame, right? I mean, LFG and D1 was like, must have Galley. You don't have Galley, we're kicking you, right? So now every season, people are looking for a certain meta, right? Now 1K is doing really well right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not too many players, because there's a lot of new players now. Not too many of them have 1K. They haven't done Last Wish as much, and not too many people are doing Last Wish. So that's another like effect right there. I don't mind the artifact, but I feel like it hinders the community as a whole because you're trying to get more people into doing these activities. Yet, they're getting pushed out. So
Right, because if the artifact plays to, like I said, something like Star Armor Bow, and you don't readily have that accessible to you in your vault, which not everybody plays 100 hours or 100 hours a day. You could almost argue like us, right? So it's not far fetched to think that someone may not have the mods that Bungie has specifically built around these GM activities, these high level PvE activities, right?
Yeah. I will also say, what is it, like last season they threw in like a fusion rifle, no composure, and that's pretty good this season, right? So people can go back and get it. But most of the time, like a lot of the things are just harder to reach components that they throw in there, and I don't think they look at it that way. But they're like, oh, we're trying to get people to dive into this and dive into this, and then it's all of a sudden it's like the opposite. Now we want you to run like 1,000 miles that way and then come back this way to come and do this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, a question on Masters. How do you feel about like the difficulty of it, where they kind of just slap on? This is my complaint with Master content and Grandmaster content, is that they kind of just like it's more of a game of like you do less damage or you take more damage and they have more health, right? Rather than like let's double the amount of enemies and add mechanics as like more of like what I call action difficulty. Like the community likes to call that artificial difficulty. It's just like a kind of different style. Like, would you prefer if they did more of like an action style difficulty to the like what people call artificial?
I would say if they added more mechanics. Like perfect example, Massive VOG last week, we did the entire thing, but then we tried doing just a challenge so we can try to get Pure in for his part, and it was a pain in the butt because now we can't really power through it because we have to leave the wyverns alive because there's the conflux challenge. That was a pain in the butt. And the only reason why is because we're getting one-shotted by everything. Yeah. Like, I don't know. That's not even fun because we understand the mechanics. We know where we can live and we can't live. But Destiny is a game that has a lot of inconsistencies too. Like sometimes ads go places they're not even supposed to be. So like at times is luck. At these levels, you're like, wait, this guy just teleported here because apparently there was like this little metal box that like stood where he was supposed to like walk out of. So there's just a lot of like bullcrap that happens behind that too, man. I'd rather just make a heavy mechanic, like punish us for messing up or something. Like punish us for not paying attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely safe to say there are some improvements to be made with some of our favorite activities like Trials and GM Nightfalls, but I think we have a very good starting ground, a starting point for each, and I'm looking forward to the future. I can't wait for Trials coming back. I think September 10th is the date, so a week from tomorrow we'll have the return of Trials, and we'll get a chance to try out and see if there's any difference between when anti-cheat wasn't even a thing. No more, like, we have no more recoveries. We have accessible loot. There's going to be a lot of changes to Trials, and I'm excited about the future. Speaking of the future, looking ahead, we've got Witch Queen, which I love all of the trailers, man. The typography, the style, everything has been so sick in typical Bungie fashion with promotion for the Witch Queen. But we've also been kind of like teased down the road a little bit, and we even got teased a little bit further down the road on Tuesday. We know about Lightfall, but we also now heard about Final Shape, which, from everything I heard, was this epic conclusion to the Light versus Darkness saga. But I want to ask you guys, is Destiny just completely ending with Final Shape, or what do you think they could be building up towards?
They specifically said it's not ending. It's the end of the saga. So it's like they're going to end this chapter within Destiny, this storyline, then introduce something new. So
I'm
whatever
so
that
curious
is.
about, like, and if anybody could do that and carry the interest, it could be Bungie. But I do almost fear, like, once that saga ends, it almost will feel like a conclusion or finality for the player's experience, right? Like, what's going to make them want to continue into this next saga, right? Like, they're going to have to really, I think, beef up the lore that you see in game as opposed to in articles and lore tabs, right? Like, they've been doing a great job with that recently, and I think if they continue to build on that, we can still have an interest past the Final Shape. But it's almost crazy to me because Destiny always had a 10-year plan, and the Final Shape would be the end of that 10 years. So maybe it truly is the end of the Darkness versus Light saga. Maybe Destiny is ending and going into development on their new game, like, right? Like, we don't really know much about that. We have like teasings of what the name might be. We know that it might be PvP focused, but it seems like once we get around the Final Shape, which will be, I think, 2025, which, let's be honest, is a little bit of a ways away. But that thing comes up on you quick, man. So, and if they're already talking about it, they're in development, at least from the story and design and everything else that goes into it. So very interesting to wonder what's going on within Bungie. Obviously, they've got their huge studio redesign. They've almost purchased the entire block of that space they occupied in Seattle. So I think I don't think we'll see the end of Destiny with the Final Shape, but maybe the end of the Vanguard or end of a specific enemy class in Destiny. Where do you guys kind of think it goes with that? EK, we'll let you start.
I mean, I feel like it's gonna be like you can basically use whatever you want, right? I don't think they're gonna have the whole Vanguard system thing. They already kind of got rid of like the factions, so I think they're just breaking down everything, and it's almost gonna be like a lawless kind of game where you get to choose your fate probably. But it'd be neat if they did something where like you can not only like face these light hive guardians, but you can be one. Like you can like choose a faction of like imagine becoming like a fallen in the House of Light or something like that. That would be neat. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page. I feel like it's going to be like every single one of the X versus X movies where it's like they're fighting and then they team up at the end, right? Because you've had like this, like, oh, the Cabal are actually chill, or there's a faction of the Cabal we're chill with. Oh, now we're chill with the Fallen. Oh, now we're probably chill with the Hive, right? And I think they've just been building up to this like team up for a greater threat.
Yeah, Savathun to me doesn't seem that. She almost seems to be approaching as a protagonist, right? Like as someone who could maybe help out the Vanguard. So I'm very interested to see with Savathun how that all develops with Witch Queen. But like I said, all of the trailers, and was that old Chicago we saw in the trailer? It was very
no, it's like it's her throne world. It's like a swamp
world, huh?
Yeah.
Wow, I could have sworn I saw like some old Chicago pictures that looked just like what the throne world looked like. But yeah, I guess that would be confirmed because we do know that with Witch Queen we'll be getting that new location. Which is they haven't, which is weird too, because when asked if it's the same size as Forsaken or Shadowkeep, they haven't really said, they haven't compared it, and they always compare it to the size of other expansions. Yeah. So are we willing to bet that we might be getting a bigger expansion than Forsaken, at least as far as from a campaign side? Because Bungie has been very open with almost wanting to create this Halo-like campaign with Witch Queen. Halo campaign doesn't take 4 to 6 hours to complete like you do with most of the yearly like Shadowkeep, right? It's probably like 4 to 6 hours. You've got almost like 10 between 10 and 40. So where do you think Bungie goes with Witch Queen? Is it going to be packed with campaign content? Do you think it's going to be a bigger space than and playground that we had with the Dreaming City and Forsaken? Where do you think we'll go with that? DK, go ahead.
Because I know that they have the Legend campaign, so you can kind of like, you know, do it at I guess the ads are just gonna be one shot on you, and you can go through that and get more rewards at the end. If they're doing stuff like that, and if they add in like hidden things such as like the Dreaming City, like ascended planes and all this, it might be big. It might be big, but I don't see anything as big as Forsaken. I don't know. I don't like from what I've seen so far, I'm not too sure about that. But the crafting, the weapon crafting and all that looks pretty neat.
Yeah, and I guess if every world has a Shattered Throne-esque element to it, right? You could almost double the play space, right? That's essentially you could 2-for-1 it right there if you're looking to get creative with making it bigger than Forsaken, which seems to be more of a thing that the community wants than I think the developers want. And going back to your thoughts, EK, I don't know if we will get a release that's bigger than Forsaken, simply because we don't have Activision. There's no Vicarious Visions. There was so much additional help, and I know Bungie's done a lot to hire, but a lot of that's been not only in game but stuff with licensing. Maybe there's a comic or a movie coming out or a TV series. I don't know, but definitely gonna be interesting to see where Destiny goes with Witch Queen. And I think the lack of a new subclass is something I'm really excited about. I think they've needed to go back to light subclasses and kind of touch those up, because they've been really like, there's been really no point alone from the fact that with stasis you can add 10 resilience or 10 recovery. Just doesn't really make sense to run light subclasses. So I'm pretty stoked for Witch Queen and the I think Void.
Yeah, it's Void first. They're doing it like every season, starting with Void. Yeah. I'm also super excited for the Witch Queen campaign because our boy Andrew Hops is campaign lead. Okay, and I'm gonna be totally honest here. I have not enjoyed a single Destiny campaign since Destiny 1. I found them all extremely boring. And yeah, I'm just going to be totally blunt and honest. Stories are fine, whatever. I'm talking about the actual gameplay. Never really excited me. But Andrew Hops, for those that don't know, he used to make like the play spaces. He's one of the devs on the play spaces in raids. And he has recently been promoted to campaign lead. And then they start talking about there's a higher difficulty of campaign. And then you have Joe. You have Joe Blackburn, the game director of Destiny now, who used to be the raid lead, the lead of the raid team, right? He left for Riot Games, came back. Now he's literally the game director, right? So he keeps commenting that they're using a like mystery element, right? He keeps referencing that it's kind of like mystery shows, and that there's supposed to be I don't know, some Scooby-Doo shit going on. But it sounds sick. And based off of those things, this is like the first campaign I'm actually like genuinely excited for.
And you said something that perked my interest, because this is what I remember from the Halo campaigns, which I loved growing up, was the difficulty slider, almost like, you know, choosing to play on legendary as opposed to heroic. Is that what you're saying is coming to the Witch Queen, or?
Well, they're calling it, it's like, I think it's like legend difficulty. I think they're calling it. And
it sounds like legendary to me. Like it sounds different.
Yeah. So I don't know what exactly that entails, whether it's just like higher ad density or they're taking a grandmaster approach. I hope it's more just like ad density, you know, and more of like an action level of difficulty.
Yeah, if it's just, you know, all the light level requirements a little higher, I don't think that's going to really move the needle. But yeah, like you said, if ad density is higher, if loot rewards have a higher chance to drop at 60 plus stat roll, I think a lot of us will be ticking off the legend option when we start up the campaign in February.
Yep.
So speaking of roadmaps, we have a little bit of a PvP roadmap for the future. I try not to laugh because I have a tremendous love for PvP, despite where it's been lately. But we finally know, Gigz and EK, we finally know that we're getting reprised maps in February with Witch Queen. We're getting new maps in the summer with one of the new seasons. We're getting new game modes, right? It sounds to me like the renewed focus on PvP promise we got 2 years ago is what we might see in the future. Gigz, what do you? Should we get excited? Should we get too worked up, or should we learn from the past? Right? How should the PvP community feel about this?
I have a lot of takes on this. So okay, no, absolutely. Like what they're announcing, what they announced, which is like 4 maps, right? And they said 2 of them are literally just bringing old maps that were in Destiny 2 out of the content vault. So like, yay, cool. One Destiny 1 remake and then 1 actual new map, right? Like what they announced, and they have to know this, like it's not very exciting, right? But what is exciting is that they are actually hiring devs for a PvP team, because it is very obvious we have not had people, a dev team, a dedicated PvP dev team for making modes and maps.
It was Josh Hamrick, right? It was.
Well, he was Sandbox. You had a
Wow.
lot of you had like I don't really want to like drop names, but they moved into different places after Shadowkeep, right?
Gotcha.
And they never were replaced. And this is obviously, you know, just I mean, look around. We haven't had a map in 2 years. So
yeah,
they are finally building out. You can go look at their jobs page. They have tons of listings for PvP centered job positions. So they are actually building a PvP team. So unlike before, right, where they said we have a renewed focus on PvP and they did absolutely nothing, right?
Right.
They actually have like job postings, right? So they are clearly forming this thing. And then Joe was recently interviewed and said that like he understands that that you know it's not really that exciting what is being announced and that people have to wait even more, but what they're doing is building the backbone to have predictable content going forward. And I think that's the exciting part. Not necessarily the content we're getting over the next year, but where we will be a year from now with a team that's already fully ramped up, knows how to make content, and just can keep pumping out content.
Yeah,
what comes beyond that is exciting, not what they already announced.
Yeah, I agree. Because as a player, just having some communication and just knowing what to expect is enjoyable, right? It kind of felt like for the past 2 years we were kind of just like floating on a cloud with like no parachute, nothing. Like we were just kind of hoping it would hold us up, right? Like, and so it's good to know that we may not get things quickly or even enough quickly, but I've always said, man, Destiny needs a true objective game mode. Let's be real. Control is just glorified Clash, right? Like it's not
Clash. Yep.
This is not an objective game type. Like I've seen Ceridius play, and he wins games without even capping his zone, which right, like a lot of us can do that. So I think for Bungie and Destiny, I'd love to see something like Oddball. Like the mechanics are already there, right? Where and I've seen you tweet about this, Gigz, where you can throw to your teammate across the map, hold down. Like there would be so much potential with Oddball. It's already there.
Fire Stars came out, Warmind. This is like the second DLC of the game. They literally have had the mechanics there. They have the ball throwing the mechanics, the catch mechanics. Turn that into a PvP mode.
And it's like
I've been saying this for like what 3 years now.
And it's like when Bungie sold Halo to Microsoft, did they sell Oddball too? Like did they sell their game modes they came up with? Because like Oddball, King of the Hill, Capture the freaking flag. Like there are 3 game modes right there that I think would immediately invigorate the PvP community and get them very excited to play the game.
Yep. Yeah, we really don't have any purely objective based game modes.
Yeah, so something like that would be really exciting. So that kind of trickles into our next question. What are you guys most excited about with Witch Queen? EK, we'll let you start it off.
Man, I mean, just campaign, diving into a whole new like world. Like even the killing the freaking hive and breaking their ghosts. That's like a crazy animation.
That's awesome. Dude, it's sick.
Seeing them just like throw their stuff back at us. I mean, I want to know what exotics they got in play.
Yep.
You know, like we'll have the subclasses set up, like the light subclasses in new ways. There's just like a bunch of things just coming together, and of course, like the lore and the story is also going to be nuts. So I'm just there's so much coming in. I don't know. I'm excited for all of it for sure. Looking forward to it. Hopefully they don't like mess this up, but we'll see.
This is the next make or break update. So you know,
every single one is.
Every single one is. Yep.
Yeah. And that's kind of like interesting for me because I don't think Destiny will ever die, but will it ever grow? And 7 years into this experience, I ran a poll on my Twitter. It had like 6,000 responses. Like 80% of people, and I asked, when did you start playing Destiny? 80% are veterans from Destiny 1. So I always I laugh because I don't think Destiny will ever die. It'll always have a player base, I believe, almost like in the sense of like a World of Warcraft, right? But will it ever grow? Is it going to take a Destiny 3 for new people to want to get involved and play Destiny? What are y'all's thoughts?
Well, I mean, like Griffin, who's a part of the like community team tweeted out that there was like 20 million plus new players within the last not that long, pretty much. I forget how long it was. But so like there are new people coming in, but it's just like I mean, I guess like kind of the Twitch numbers have stayed the same. Like in terms of like there's like a core community, and like obviously some people come, some people go, but like yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Like clearly there are new players, but I mean you can also just go look at Steam charts and it's kind of like been the same for a while. So in terms of like active players on at one time. And like how many of those 20 million players or whatever just like played once and never played it again, you know?
Yep. Which is common for most people who play any game for the first time, right? They very rarely will go back to it.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that, EK? What do you like almost like I said, posing the idea or thought that we don't think Destiny initially will ever die, but will it ever grow? And if so, what would it take to double up the player population, right? As an example.
I would say we just gotta look at some of the playlists that like don't have much life to them, that used to have a lot of life to them.
Gambit, Crucible, Strikes, right?
Yeah, Gambit and Crucible for sure. Even Trials. Like I have nothing against people doing recovs and all this, but I feel like even that kills it. Besides shooters, you also have it to where like someone's first experience is like you're going against a team that's, you know, probably on the 6th game because the matchmaking is all bunked, right? So you get in there, you're like, oh, okay, I don't want to play this. That's why like there's certain weekends you'll see people just jump off the map for their 3-1 rewards or like whatever the rounds that they need to do. You need to see the anti-cheat actually work because like, man, earlier today I remember we played against a guy like he was just zoomed in
Wizard?
the whole time.
No.
Yeah, Wizard. Wasn't missing shots, but he was zoomed in. This guy had no sense of awareness. Like I was standing behind them on stream for like seconds. I was just behind them and he was just shooting people and he was not missing, right? This guy knew nothing. Yet like I don't understand how that's even happening, but maybe when the full thing gets put out, it might be a little bit better.
Right.
Because that kind of turns people off too. Like you jump in and you're like, okay, I'll see you another day.
Yep.
You know?
And so for those that don't know, we had the anti-cheat Battle Eye launch last Tuesday. It was a soft launch though. So Battle Eye is going to be, I guess, gathering a group of players that have been cheating, and then Bungie's security team is going to manually go through to make sure that they're not overreaching and banning players who aren't cheating, right? So I think once they go through enough manual reviews of who's cheating and who's not cheating, we'll have that hard launch anti-cheat. And that's where my hope is, like the Wizard flying around in your game, EK, he just gets nuked to, you know, to the orbit screen, right? And then is never allowed back in, right? So that's kind of, I think, the hope for a lot of us when the hard launch occurs here in a couple of weeks. So let's switch gears here and almost go a little bit outside of Destiny and still talk about the state of Twitch, talk about the state of Twitch and big streamers leaving. I said this was back when Courage, Dr. Disrespect, a couple other guys were leaving. And I always said that for Twitch or for YouTube to actually be a legitimate threat from the live streaming side, because I know they have way more viewers on the recorded side or the VOD side, but in order for them to really be taken serious on the live streaming front, they need to take away almost like, I'd say, half of the top 10. And they've almost got that now with Courage, Dr. Lupo, Destiny, you know, guy Destiny's very own, Tim the Tatman, and then Dr. Disrespect. So I think this is just me, but I think we're like a Summit or a Ninja or a Shroud, who I think some of those guys actually signed recent Twitch deals, but I think we're one of those top streamers away from seeing a serious power balance shift in the live streaming ecosystem. What do you guys think about that, and what are your thoughts on just how much good could be done for live streaming in general if there was a little bit more competition and it wasn't just Twitch kind of almost like running the show as almost like a monopoly or something like that, right? So EK, you want to jump in on that?
I mean, the thing is, when it comes to Twitch, is very consistent, and that's where a lot of content creators started. So, in order to, you know, for most big streamers to leave the platform, there definitely has to be, you know, compensation for like, okay, what if this happens? What if that happens? And you know, a lot of these guys, they know what they can do, right? They know if they're comfortable moving somewhere else. Like people have left, you know, have went to Mixer, and yeah, maybe if they grab. But the thing about this too is I don't even know if Shroud would want to leave. Like I feel like some of the guys that already left.
Shroud did leave with Mixer.
Yeah, he went to Mixer. He probably the things he probably already like went through that experience, he's probably like, maybe I don't want to redo that again, right?
Yeah,
It's one of those
scary,
things where like,
that thought.
yeah,
That's scary as hell. Starting over, man.
yeah.
But you were saying,
I think the thing for a lot of this is that like these guys secured their bag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if we're talking about the individual creator, like Shroud and Ninja, they went to Mixer, they got a contract. Mixer goes under, they still have that contract. They got paid out in full and they got their payday early, and then they came right back to Twitch, right?
Yeah.
And it's like these people would not be moving over to YouTube unless they were getting paid a ton of fucking money, right? And so it's a question of like, you know, you don't, in terms of being a streamer, you don't have, you know, your employee benefits. You don't get, you know, your health care, your 401k.
Right.
You have to do all of that on your own. And how long does this career last? So you have to set yourself up for the future. So that is why a lot of people, when offered these massive contracts, end up taking it. And I mean, it does make sense. It's just, you know, in terms of Dr. Lupo and Tim the Tapman, the two people that just signed with YouTube, YouTube offered them more money, and that's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
I agree.
I also don't think it's like a big deal for Twitch. Like Twitch still has a lot of creators; they still have a ton of viewers.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like anything to be necessarily concerned about, and like you have people that will fill their slot.
I was just gonna. You read my mind, right? Like Twitch knows that they have so many, not even hundreds, but thousands of streamers that average anywhere from like 150 to 1,000 CCV, which that's a lot, man. Like, I think they think that, well, it's like almost like in football, like next man up, right? Like let's just next man or woman up that wants to take their spot, right? So I almost wonder if like Twitch sees these guys leave and they're like, oh, well, we already know like streamers like XYZ, Ninja Shroud, Myth are going to make up for that CCV that they might have lost, right? So does it even matter at the end of the day? And what would it take, do you guys think, for Twitch to start improving on some of the things that we've seen recently? Lack of support for partners, obviously, the hate raids that are happening within marginalized communities. What's it going to take for Twitch to step up and start making some moves?
You want to take this one, EJ?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know. I get a lot of surveys. They send me a lot of emails. I even have like a server panel now. I also have this thing where like I can just go directly to the report center and talk with someone, and they didn't have that before.
Oh, wow.
So like they're slowly working on certain things. It's just not like out in the open, but it's like I feel like it's just taking so long for it to be implemented. I feel like they're too like nitpicky. Like they're like, okay, we're gonna do this. And then they'll backtrack off of that and like, okay, we're gonna try this and we're gonna try this. Like same thing with the whole hot tub thing, right? Oh, yeah, we don't want it. Oh, now we have a whole section for it. So it's just like
very inconsistent.
It's very inconsistent. There's like this weird balance. But like Gigz just said, like at the end of the day, it comes down to what can secure your future. So like if a company reaches out like, hey, come work with us, and you look at the numbers to what you're doing now to what you could possibly get to secure your future, you're probably going to do it, right? Like same thing with Facebook gaming. So I don't think Twitch has anything to worry about, especially because they are like the core platform that like streaming has started off on. Like if you look it up, they're the number one platform, right? Like it's gonna take a while to take down that like monster, no matter what, you know?
Yeah, they call it first to market advantage. And Twitch definitely has that. And they built a whole culture around streaming, whereas YouTube was not built on streaming. But YouTube is backed by Google, a $2 trillion company.
They're kind of big.
They're a little big, and they have a lot of money to spend. So, I mean, we'll see.
Yeah,
but just spending money doesn't mean you'll be successful. Look at Mixer.
Yeah, YouTube's come a long way though. Recently, they something even like a sub badge wasn't a thing until this year, right? Which is crazy to think about. Emotes weren't a focus. I know they're focusing more on that because I think you talk. Connor, you mentioned this. The culture that Twitch established, I guess the good culture at the beginning was based around like that the emotes, right? And like the kind of the way that people were communicating at the time. It was changing, right? That was 2011, right? Like, so it was a very different time and a time when I think, like you said, Twitch took advantage of being first to market.
Yeah.
So speaking of live streaming, we've got quite some time before Witch Queen drops in February. Are there any other games or things you guys are looking forward to before that you guys will be doing on Twitch? Or you guys?
Halo.
What's up?
Halo, dude.
Halo. Yeah. I think that question's pretty simple for me and Connor. We'll be probably 24 hours streaming on December 8th when Halo launches. But EK, what about you, man? I know you loved. I think Genshin is probably your secondary game, but you tell us a little bit more about that. What else do you like to get into besides Destiny?
There's a bunch of like roguelike shooters that I normally play. Like Gunfire Reborn is one of them. I like those games that you just like go through different stages. You pick your different like power ups and just go through a bunch of stuff, and then you get to the end. You're like, all right, cool. Let me go back and do it again. Like Hades did that for me as well. But then like after I did like 99% of my completions or triumphs or whatever, there was nothing else for me to do because like I got all the weapons done. But games like that, I could just be there for hours, man. Like just I think most games don't feel like my need to like pay attention to detail or like look at what I'm doing. Most of them are just like, all right, let's get in. Here's the task. You do this, repeat, go back in. All right. Anything that has a little bit of randomness and it's not always the same ending, I kind of like playing.
Yeah. Do you think that you're because you grew up playing basketball, like you said, you played in college. It seems to me like you take such a competitive approach to whether it's PvE or PvP. Do you think that was a big part of it? Like, what got you to be so motivated to complete 3,000 freaking clears, 3,000 plus? It's probably like almost 3,100 now. To complete so many Grandmaster Nightfalls and compete at that high level in Sherpa.
Honestly, when it started, we were just like messing around, and like people came and chatted, like, "Yo, can you help us? Like this, I can't get this done. This is hard." I was like, "Sure, whatever." And then over time, it just became like theory crafting. Okay, if I'm bringing two people with me, like what did I need and what they need, right? And then it started like building like that. And then every season, it was like, I get on Twitter, someone's like, "Man, I can't beat this strike," and I'm laughing. I'm like, I got this strat, right? Like, and that kind of helped me out for YouTube too, because like Paul's like, I bet this is the video, and like we'll upload it. So like from that perspective, it's nice. And then of course having like terrible artifact stuff, you now have to like find your way around it. But like I said, sometimes it becomes like the same strikes like in the next season or like almost the same mods, and it just becomes boring because now I'm like, okay, that's not really a challenge. Now I'm just doing the same thing again for another 3 months. So I'm kind of happy they brought something new in. But I would say when it comes to just like diving into challenge stuff and figuring it out, the cool thing is that I can bring someone else into the play and figure it out with that person, or like bring two people in and figure it out. Because half of the time, some people don't have what I plan to have, right? So then like we'll like have like some weird bonker thing, but it'll work. Like some dude was running like bottom tree void with doom things, and we were making sure like ads were like one shot so he can like make orbs for us. So we can chain orbs. Awesome. Like so it's just like I don't know. It's just random. It's randomness, man. I like randomness because it adds a little bit of a challenge. So
very nice. Absolutely. I love it, man. I think on that note, we have are we for sure getting a raid with Witch Queen?
Yes. Yeah. That's the thing I'm looking forward to the most. I don't think I have answering that question earlier, but that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Segueing into that, Connor, let's talk about what you're looking at with regards to the raid. Almost like take a step back. Like, what was it like preparing for the Last Wish raid? And did you feel like going into that you guys were going to get worlds first?
Well, like you always assume you will. You have the mindset that you will, but like there's also a lot of element of randomness to these world first races. Preparing into it was like 2 weeks of like nonstop grinding. So yeah, that was pretty intense. And I mean, Forsaken was a great DLC. I think a lot of people consider it to be like the pinnacle of Destiny. But I think that while they have straight up said they will not have another DLC the size of Forsaken, I don't think that means they can't have a DLC that's better than Forsaken. And I think that Witch Queen has the potential to be better than Forsaken. So that's kind of like I'm setting my expectations super high. Maybe I'll be let down. I hope not. But that's kind of where my expectations are at. I think maybe not as big as Forsaken, but I want it to be better than Forsaken. And they have to, beat that bar at some point. Last Wish was a phenomenal raid. And Witch Queen, that raid could be better. Let's get 10 bosses and have a 2-week-long World First race.
Yeah, I love what you just said about Destiny doesn't have to be bigger to be better, right? Like Witch Queen doesn't have to be a bigger map to play on to be a better expansion. And I think almost like reshaping our minds around that theory or that belief would be a really good idea, because I just see on Twitter it's almost like it just within the community, it only comes down to whether or not it's a bigger campaign or a bigger map than Forsaken. Everything's always benchmarked up against being bigger than Forsaken. And maybe it's not so much about being bigger than Forsaken, is about being better, right? And I think I feel hopeful for that on the PvP side of kind of like the mentality, knowing that like I'm dug in to the lore and the story and just everything else that's going on in the universe. It has me captivated, and I really just play the game for the PvP part of it. So
Yeah.
they're doing well there, right? So
yeah, I never gave a shit about the story until like a couple seasons ago, or really last season. I was like, oh damn, this is actually kind of sick. And so yeah, I'm with you there on like story narrative actually like improving tremendously.
do you have do you guys both have your teams set for Worlds First, or what's that looking like? A little too far out ahead, or?
Yeah, I mean it's probably like the same core team that we've been running. But who knows? We'll see. Depends on who's playing, I guess. Some people have like, they just are kind of over it at this point.
Sure. EK, that would be quite the you got quite the mantle of accomplishments in Destiny. Adding a World's First raid belt would be one of them. Is that something you aspire to, or you good with?
I mean, honestly, like most of the time when I'm running, like everyone's on my team's like, all right, we're gonna go for World's First, but we're just trying to have fun. So like most of the time for me, I'm like, all right, cool, I'm fine with it. And like you said too, like it's not about the size of the suspension. Another thing too is like I feel like a lot of people feel like they're doing the same things every new season, like to power up, right? Like people going back and doing like 3 strikes, 3 gambit, 3 crucible matches, or doing other stuff like that. And then on top of it, a lot of folks like do like bounty grinding and get ready for, all of the things that are coming up. And then they get disappointed because they're like, wait a minute, I'm already like max 100 on my pass and there's nothing else to do. So, I was like, tell people like that you're kind of burning yourself out to that point. Like why not just like chill and enjoy it for what it is? Like this season, we have 6 months, man. I know people that are like ranked 300 already. I'm like, but there's nothing to do with it. Like there's,
the XP system sucks. I hate it so much.
It's
I have to get that off my chest. I hate it. It's
light
awful.
level growth, XP growth in this game is pretty bad.
Yeah,
because it's not a good experience. It's just
it's so arbitrary. It's like like there's no why behind it. There's no purpose for, like I don't feel like I'm getting any more badass or stronger, but I'm gaining light level. Shouldn't that go hand in hand? I think Bungie's kind of lost that feel that I used to remember being going from level 31 to 32, or getting the etheric light to reach 34 in Destiny 1. Like I felt like I was getting stronger. I haven't felt like that since then. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, this is also interesting context for GMs. I spent all of last season. I'd never spent any like time really like farming for XP or doing any of the like tedious tasks, and I did not ever end up being GM ready until the very end of the season.
Wow.
And I played a lot. So like, the system actually is terrible. I hate it bad.
Yeah, and granted, even me, like I don't do very many PvE activities, but yeah, like with EK, it took me till about the end of the season to get to 1335 or whatever it was to be ready to do GMs. And certainly there should be some aspirational level there where I do have to work to get to that light level. But like I said, it just feels so arbitrary and without purpose or passion that it just kind of feels like I'm going through the motions, especially if you've been playing since 14, right?
Yeah, my thing is like if it feels like homework. Like I'm gonna play regardless, right? So now, like I do play almost every day, so I will get to that light level. But I could just imagine myself getting burnt out if I prepped and then played. I would be burned out like easily. Like people like, how come you don't pick up bounties sometimes? I was like, it's like I don't know. Most of the time, if I pick up a bounty, I don't even pay attention to it. If it gets done, it gets done. Like it's
also ever since they added the ability to pull bounties from your like phone, and then like people can just farm it like crazy. I like do bounties even less. I'm just like, dude, bounties suck. They're not fun. Like
bounties have become Destiny's endgame, which is weird. I think people should earn more just by playing. Like if you're gonna spend hours in Crucible, the XP that you get at the end of the match, as long as you didn't AFK or like if you're killing people, you should get more XP. If someone's doing like strikes, and then the tier goes up to like a Nightfall, right? And then like a Master Nightfall, a Grandmaster Nightfall, or like the first time someone does the raid for the week, each encounter gives you a crap ton of XP. Give people XP for playing the game instead of like having to, go pick up your homework and then go here and do it. It's terrible.
3 sidearm kills. Yeah, it's not fun.
Yep. And I know that they've been trying to change it to where like people can use what they like, but most of them are just still like crappy.
All right, guys. Sorry, keep going.
No, I'm just like, dude. All right, new season, right? We have bounties again that are tied to the activity. Why? Just let people go play it.
Yeah. There's loot there already, right? So the purpose is there, right? You can attach progression to something other than just simply playing the game, right? People play the game for the loot, right? Or the lore, maybe, but certainly not bounties. Certainly not bounties. So, but yeah, we're about at the hour mark. We don't want to take any more time from you guys. Each week, plan on doing about an hour or less on these podcasts. So pretty, substantial size while still being a little bite size for you guys. But before we go, any final thoughts from you guys or where we can find you guys on social? EK, let it rip.
You can find me on twitch.tv/Ekuegan. Same thing for Twitter, same thing for Instagram. My name is just basically used on all platforms, but the main place would be Twitch.
Yeah, you can just find me on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch/Gigz. And then final thought, make a damn good ranking system, Bungie.
1 through 50. I mean, they invented it, right? Did they sell that to 343 and Microsoft?
1 through 50.
Like, why did not just bring it?
Make cosmetic rewards. Put good game modes. Actually talk with your community. Like, God. Okay, I got to get that off my chest. But Jesus. All right, that was fun.
All right, guys. Well, you guys can find me at Old Man Makowski on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all that good stuff. Usually posting content every single day. Thank you guys so much for joining us for the very first episode of The Tower. We'll be doing these at least once or twice a month and are looking forward to the next episode. Until then, y'all take care, stay positive, keep sniping, and we'll see ya.
Love you.